Hi there, and welcome to the Aquarium Online Academy. I'm so happy that you could join us for this program. My name is Stacy, and I'm coming to you live from the Aquarium of the Pacific in Long Beach, California. Now, for this episode, we are going to be taking a look behind the scenes and especially taking a look at what it takes to not only design and build an octopus exhibit specifically for our giant Pacific octopus, but also how we care for that octopus. So I hope that you have some questions about how all that goes down. And if you do, please text us. The number is right over here, 562 286 1838. And of course, if you do need to ask for permission to text, please do, as data rates may apply. But I would love to hear from you, not only your questions, but also the thoughts that you feel like sharing. Now, because we are more or less looking at designing an exhibit, if it's something that you have ever been interested in, I encourage you to maybe get a piece of paper and a pencil or a pen or colored pencils, crayons, whatever it might be, and you can actually design your own octopus exhibit right there at home with whoever you're with in your room there. So I encourage you to do that. Now, you may need to make some modifications as we learn more and more about what it takes to build this exhibit. So maybe something like a pencil would be a good idea. So that way you can erase and change your exhibit as needed. All right. So if we were to build an exhibit for a giant Pacific octopus, how do we even start something like that? Well, really, the best thing to do when starting a project like this is to look at the animal that you want to showcase, or animals. Take a look at that animal. What do you already know about them? And what are questions that you might have that will help you answer how do you build them a good exhibit, somewhere where they can thrive and grow and do really well and be healthy and all of that. Now, this here is a beautiful picture of our giant Pacific octopus. This is what they look like. They're actually the biggest octopus in the world, so they can get to be quite large. Now, the octopuses that we typically have here at the Aquarium of the Pacific are not the biggest ones you will ever find. They tend to be kind of in the average range, which I think our biggest one was a little over 60 pounds, which is actually quite large for a giant Pacific octopus. So we know that they can be kind of big. What else do you know about octopuses in general, or specifically giant Pacific octopuses? I'm going to give you just a few moments to think about that. What do you already know about them? And what are some questions that you might have questions that you might have so you can try to figure out how to build this exhibit? All right, so take a few moments. Well, one thing that we do a lot here at the Aquarium of the Pacific, and a lot of other aquariums do as well, is we try to make their exhibit a lot like where you would find them in their natural habitat. So where would you find a giant Pacific octopus? Do you think you would find them in the warm tropical waters of Hawaii? Or do you think they would be more along our coast in California? Or maybe even further north? Where do you think you would find an animal like this? Well, that's really tough unless you just know about them, right? Giant Pacific octopuses actually thrive in cold water. They really do well in cold water. In fact, they do really, really well, ideally at about 50 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's pretty cool. It's a little bit cooler than we tend to have here, although you might actually find them in Southern California. You are more likely to encounter them further north, like say Oregon, Washington, even up into Canada. All right, so that's where you tend to find giant Pacific octopuses. Well, what do you think their habitat looks like? So we know that the water needs to be cold. Do you think you find them where it's sandy and flat? Do you think you find them in a really rocky area? Well, they can live in a few different areas, but as you can see here in our exhibit, they really do well in rocks. And one of the reasons why is that they're actually a pretty shy animal. I know right now this animal doesn't seem too shy. It is out there showing you its suction cups, all of that. But they're actually quite shy. They're really known for hiding. And although they are really active when they are active, most of the time they just kind of settle in, hunker down, and rest. takes a lot of energy for them to move around and to think about their environment as they walk around. So a lot of times when you go, like if you were to go out diving, you actually wouldn't really see giant Pacific octopus very often because they do rest quite a lot. And when they rest, they hide. So having a place to hide is a really important part of building an exhibit for an octopus. Now, what kind of thing can we give it to hide in? Should we give it a pineapple under the sea? You could, right? But to keep it more natural, we tend to use things like caves or maybe even something that looks a lot like a rock, but it's artificial so that it is kind of cave-like. And that's actually one of the things that we have in our exhibit. All right, so we know these nice tall rocky walls, okay, nice cool water, a place to hide because they, again, love to hide. What else do we need to know about them? Well, we probably need to know what they eat, right? So we know what we can feed them. What does an octopus eat? Just by looking at them, it's really hard to say, right? Do you think they would eat something very large? Probably not super big because they have to be able to catch it. They are quite strong. Their suction cups, each suction cup can actually hold about 10 pounds of pressure. So just imagine how much this octopus could then hold or how strong it could be if each suction cup can handle 10 pounds on their own. Okay, so something kind of smaller but easy for them to catch. Now, octopuses actually do eat a lot of different things. They're pretty opportunistic, meaning they'll eat almost anything that they could potentially eat. They tend to really go after things like fish, maybe crabs and shellfish like clams and mussels. They'll eat snails. They'll even eat squid and potentially even other octopuses as well. So that's really interesting. Knowing what they eat can also tell you who their neighbors can be, who can live in that exhibit with them. You probably wouldn't put fish in there. You probably wouldn't put crabs, clams, mussels, snails. All of those things are part of the octopus's diet. So instead, you would probably put things that are something the octopus wouldn't eat. So what you tend to find in an octopus exhibit are things like large sea stars and sea anemones. And that's about it because they are really good eaters. They can eat quite a lot of things. Now, also knowing that they do eat other octopuses and squid, you probably shouldn't house octopuses together unless you have a very, very large exhibit where they can each have their own space and they don't interact with each other very much. So that is another option. Now, at the Aquarium of the Pacific, we have an exhibit that's really great for one octopus. And that's why for our giant Pacific octopus, we're really only going to house one in there at a time. We do have behind the scenes space where if we were to get another giant Pacific octopus, we can put them behind the scenes. So that way they are not living together. Because if they're going to eat each other, you definitely don't want them to hang out together. All right. Now, this is a view of the top of the exhibit here. So if you were behind the scenes and you were to glare into the exhibit, this is what it looks like. So you can see some of the neighbors, right? We were saying sea anemones. That's these guys right here. And then some sea stars. So there's a few different types of sea stars that you'll see in here. Some of the shells that you see in the corner there, that was actually food. It was mussel on the half shell that we gave the octopus to eat. Now, where is this octopus? Can you find it? Now, that's something really cool about octopuses, right? They are masters of disguise. They are the best at camouflage. Now, I know where it is because I actually took this picture. It's right up here in the corner. And it's actually not hiding super duper well here because he spotted us and he actually wanted to come over and interact. Octopuses are incredibly curious. And so when they have enough energy, if they've rested enough, they really do want to investigate things. That's one of the reasons why the rock wall isn't just straight up and down. Why there are bumps and crevices and creases, places for the octopus to explore. All right. But this octopus here, very shortly after I took this picture, actually came right up to us, and I was standing in the back, kind of like right here, and with his aquarist. And that's one kind of view of what this exhibit looks like. Now, another thing that you have to consider with an octopus, not only are they masters of disguise, so they may be a little tough to find on occasion, but they are also masters of escape. Now, an octopus is an invertebrate. It doesn't have a skeleton. In fact, the only real hard parts of the octopus are the mouth, which is a beak, okay? It looks a lot like a bird beak, and it's located in the middle of all of the arms. So you don't tend to see it, but it's in there. So that is like the hardest part of the octopus's body. Also, part of the eye is on the harder side as well. So if the beak can fit through a crack, crevice, or hole, the entire octopus can squish itself through. So that then presents a challenge because this octopus could potentially escape. Again, they're also great at maneuvering around. We actually saw that video of it walking around, right? Using its arms and the suction cups to walk around. It can scale walls. It's pretty incredible. So then how would you keep an octopus in an exhibit? It's definitely something you need to think about. Also, a lot of exhibits actually have a false floor. So there's an actual bottom to the exhibit. Then we put a grate down and then put some substrate or rocks on top of the grate. And there's a false floor and it just gives it a little bit more water and a little bit better flow. With an octopus, you need to be careful with that because they could potentially get through the grate and down into the bottom, and then they're tough to get. And you definitely want to have access to the animals because you need to be able to feed them. You also need to be able to care for them. And if something is going wrong with your animal, you need to be able to see it. So you'll have to be able to observe your animal. And that's one of the reasons why this is a pretty open space right here, because it's much easier not only for the guests who come to the aquarium to see the octopus, but also for the aquarist, the person who takes care of the octopus, to be able to look inside and observe and make sure that it looks good. It looks healthy. It's acting the way that it should be acting. Now, here in this exhibit, this little thing right here, this rock, it looks a whole lot like a rock. It's actually an artificial rock in that it's hollowed out. And so if the octopus wanted to completely hide, it can shove itself down in there. The other thing too is at the top of the exhibit, on this side, exactly where the octopus is, there's actually a piece of plastic, a piece of basically plastic on the top there. And it creates a cave right here because when the octopus looks up, it can't see the lighting. So it feels like a cave. And that's one of the reasons why this octopus is chosen to hide right here. Hide in plain sight. Did you see the octopus in there? Did you notice that it was in the corner over there? Yeah, it's right over there. The suction cups kind of gave it away for me, is that you can see the suction cups right here. Otherwise, they're really, really tough to see. Again, masters of disguise. All right, now we actually have a couple videos of how octopuses are masters of disguise, and they're pretty incredible. Okay, so here is Godzilla. That is the octopus, the giant Pacific octopus that we have right now. This is actually Godzilla coming over to say hello. So remember, we had him over in the corner when we were looking in the top, and he actually came right over because he was wondering what we were up to. Now, something that I thought was really interesting is his aquarist, Angelina, was told me that she fed him earlier. So it's not that he came over because he was hungry. He knows that he gets fed from the top, from the surface, but he came over just to investigate because, again, they're incredibly curious. Now, I think this is kind of a cool view. What do you think? We were very, very close to each other. In fact, I was even able to touch the octopus, which they are super interesting. I don't know if you've ever had an opportunity like that. Not many people have. They feels a little slimy, I have to say. Looks a little slimy, feels a little slimy. And it's surprising how squishy they are, and knowing that they can squeeze through small cracks and crevices, they actually are pretty firm. they're very muscular in that sense. So it's a very interesting feeling animal. All right, so we're going to pull up the camouflage video. It takes just a few moments, so we're going to pull that up. So have you gotten all the questions that you may have had answered? If you needed to build this exhibit, do you know everything you need to know now about this octopus that will allow you to build it a perfect exhibit, an exhibit where it will be healthy and thrive? Now, if you didn't get those answers, those questions answered, please send them in, because maybe then I can help you answer those questions. All right. So please send those in if you have them. All right. So now that we know about our octopus, we also need to know about what they need. Oh, very cool. Okay. Here is one of our camouflage videos. Now, I don't believe this is a giant Pacific octopus, but it is an octopus. All right. So pretty amazing, right? Now, one of the reasons why we knew this octopus was right there was because we saw it first when it was kind of this really dark, deep red color. And then it settled in. Now, did you notice not only did it change its color, but it changed the texture of its skin? It's really incredible that they have that ability. So again, changing color is important. They can actually match their surroundings pretty well, which is also kind of fascinating. Actually, let me share this fun fact with you. Octopuses have actually pretty interesting eyesight. It's pretty similar to us in a lot of ways. Like when you are to go in the water and if you had a mask on, what you could see is very similar to what an octopus can see, but they're colorblind. So that is fascinating to me, because how can you be colorblind yet match your surroundings so perfectly? I'm not sure if anybody's, I'm sure actually people have probably been studying this, but what people have found, I am unsure. So I don't know exactly how that works. However, so they match the colors, but they can also change the texture of their skin. And they do that with muscles that are on the surface of the octopus. The muscles can contract, and that makes the skin kind of pop up. And so they can change that texture of their skin to match the texture of what they're on. Because if you notice here, this is not smooth. If the octopus was completely smooth, it would actually stand out. So changing color and texture is important. Whoa. Did you know there was an octopus in this video? You probably knew somewhere, right? Because of course we're talking about them, so it's got to be somewhere. But did you see it before it changed colors to not match anymore? So that's one way that we know that octopuses are masters of disguise. And if you were to go to an aquarium and you were looking for the octopus, just remember that. One of the best ways that I find them is to actually try to find an eye. If you can find the eye, which doesn't blend in quite as well as the rest of it, then you have a better shot of actually locating it. Other than that, if they're not moving around like this, they could be quite difficult to find. Okay. So I think we know a lot about octopuses now, right? We've learned a lot about giant Pacific octopuses. Well, in general, when you think about an aquarium, most of them are closed systems. So what that means is everything is enclosed in one little package, okay? It's not connected out to the ocean. Now, that means we, because we care for it, need to be able to take care of not only the animal itself, but the water that it lives in. And that's all actually caring for the water. So filtration is incredibly important when it comes to any ocean critters, especially the ones that have to breathe the water. Now, an octopus has interesting anatomy, okay? So if you were to look at it, we know all those arms, right? And you see where the eyes are. So its head is actually connected to the arms. And then on the opposite side is where all of its organs are. That's the body of it, otherwise known as a mantle. And within that mantle, oh, this is great. So this right here is the mantle. This is actually its body, has the organs and everything. You can see the eye right here. Its mouth would be located about right here between all the arms. We can't see it. And then, of course, all the arms, right? So in here is where all the organs are. That's also where their gills are, and that's what they're going to use to get oxygen out of the water. So yes, they have gills. No, they're not like fish. They're actually pretty different. Now, this right here is a body opening. that body opening is going to be taking water into the mantle. Now, this is crazy. That means the water of the exhibit is actually bathing all of their internal organs, including their gills. So that's one of the reasons why the water chemistry has to be perfect. It has to be super clean because it's actually going through all of their organs. It's like bathing them. It's crazy. And then when they breathe out, they have a little tube in that same general area. That little tube is called a siphon, and that can spit the water out. Now, the force at which they spit the water out of the siphon will tell you if they're just hanging out and breathing, because if it's kind of more of a slow force, they're just breathing. If they really push the water out of their siphon, if they're underwater, it can actually make them swim. Okay, so like a short burst of swimming. If they're out of the water, like he was right there, he could actually spit the water. And he did try to soak us one time when I was visiting up there. He did spit the water out. And I'm not sure exactly why they do it. I don't know if it's on purpose. It seems like it probably is. They're actually really intelligent for invertebrates. They're, I believe, the most intelligent invertebrate that we know of. So there is definitely some thinking involved, and it seems like they may even like the reaction they get when you get soaked. So it's pretty interesting. All right, so again, we have to make sure that that water chemistry is on point. So filtration is key. Now, one of the things that we do here at the aquarium is we have a water quality lab. We actually have a laboratory that is devoted to taking a look at all of the different exhibits and holding areas that we have here at the aquarium and making sure that the water is exactly what it's supposed to be. And each exhibit may have slightly different parameters. So it's important that we are able to test everything. And every exhibit that we have here and every holding area behind the scenes that we have here is tested at least once a week. There are some that are actually tested even more frequently. So that lab is incredibly busy. All right. It looks like we have a question from Victoria. Victoria would like to know if a lot of different animals can live in a habitat together. Victoria, that's a good question. We were actually talking earlier about the giant Pacific octopus and how it can't have too many neighbors because it eats so many different things. So the neighbors that they have are things that they don't eat, like sea stars and sea anemones. But we have a lot of exhibits here that have tons of different life. Take a look inside this exhibit. This represents our kelp forest. And as you can see, there are many different kinds of fish. There are sharks in here. Sometimes we have rays in here. We have different size fish. Some are smaller, some are bigger. We even have eels and a shark that hides as well. It's real good at hiding where we almost never see it at all. And then it's really hard to see, but there are a handful of sea stars in here as well, actually right over here. So yes, we can actually have many different animals living together, but it is important to know who eats what and try to keep them away from each other or make sure that they stay very well fed so that they are not trying to eat each other. Now this here is another exhibit. As you can see, it looks very different than the one we just saw, and it also looks incredibly different from the giant Pacific octopus exhibit that we were looking at earlier. This one here is live coral. So all of the coral, the stuff that looks like kind of fancy rock work, those are not plants. Those are actually animals called coral. And they're colonial. So this one thing right here has thousands of animals all living together, and they're kind of working together just for all of them to live. Okay, so like almost like one big organism, but there's actually many of them that live in a colony. So you can see here there are many different types of coral in this exhibit. There are many different types of fish in there as well. And there are also some other invertebrates that we can't see. We often will have like giant clams, sea stars, sea urchins. So you can absolutely have exhibits that have many different species. Okay, so a few other questions came through here. How can we tell if an octopus is male or female? Oh, that's a really cool question. It's tough. If you were just to look at it as it's sitting there, it may not you may not be able to tell because they look really similar. They're similar in size. Their colors are the same. The way you tell is to look at one of the arms. So I can't remember exactly which arm it is. It's like the third one on the right or something like that. If you were to look at the third one on the right, the females have suction cups on the entire length of the arm. The males actually have a patch that is missing the suction cups. So that's how you would know if it's a male or a female. Now, we have had a lot of female giant Pacific octopuses here at the Aquarium of the Pacific, but the one that we currently have, Godzilla, he's actually a male. And so we were able to see his arm, and we were able to notice that blank patch of no suction cups right in that arm. So that's how we know. All right. And then, oh, thank you. I believe the word is Hectocotylus. So that's the third arm on the right. Oh boy. You do not need to remember that word, just like I didn't even know how to say the word. Okay, so so very cool. We know that we have to have high quality water, and that also means we need to have high quality filtration. Now, filtration is a bunch of different things, a bunch of different like machines that we have behind the scenes. So you don't often get to see this. If you were to go on the behind the scenes tour here at the aquarium, you actually might be able to see some of the filtration of some of the exhibits that we have around the aquarium. Now we have, I believe it's 1.2, maybe even a little bit more water than that in our entire aquarium, and we can filter about 1 million gallons an hour. So we do a lot of filtration, and that's because it is so important for our animals to have clean water. Now, part of filtration is to take out any chunks that might kind of get left inside the exhibit. Now, what that means is that water will kind of drain out of the exhibit. It'll get sucked out of the exhibit in a drain. It will go into some of the piping that we have. And a lot of our exhibits use these. These are called filter bags. A filter bag is really fine mesh bag. The water is spat in here from the pipes, and then it comes right out of the bottom. Any large chunks that are in that water will then be caught by this bag. So that's one way that we can get any big chunks out of the water. Now, as you can notice, it's actually tied here so that we can untie it, take the bag off, and we can actually rinse it out. So we have to rinse it out, blast it out. We'll even bleach the bag. But again, bleach is a chemical that you do not want in the water. It shouldn't mess with our water chemistry. So we have to deactivate the bleach with another thing called thiosulfate. And so soaking it in there actually deactivates the bleach, so we don't have to worry about bleach getting into the water, but we know that the filter bag is nice and clean. All right. And then once it is clean, you can tie it back up, and then it will be catching those chunks, which you definitely don't want. Another thing that catches chunks is a sand filter. So a lot of jacuzzis have sand filters, and basically it's just this big tub of sand. Here it is right here. This is actually the giant Pacific octopus one. So you can see the piping goes in. The water actually moves through the sand, and any chunks will get caught in the sand. And then after it moves through, it comes out of the sand filter and back into the system. So there's a couple of different ways that we can take any kind of chunks of things out of the water. Now, that's not the only thing. There are dissolved things inside that we want to get rid of as well. A protein skimmer, it's also called a foam fractionator, is one of the ways that we can get dissolved proteins, like dissolved poop, out of the water, because you definitely want to get that out of the water. It might be poop, it might be dissolved food that's kind of been in there a little bit. This right here is what that looks like. In a way, it works a little bit like a jacuzzi. So the water goes into this portion, and then air is pumped into it. This is really cool. Protein loves bubbles. So when you push air into it, you're creating bubbles. Proteins will attach to those bubbles and will even make it foamier. And then you'll notice this section is completely full of bubbles. This is completely full of proteins that have been pulled out of the water. So my friends, this is foamy fish poop. Yep. So the beach does this too. The ocean actually does this on its own. It doesn't have to have a foam fractionator attached to it because it's an open system. It's the ocean. If you've ever gone to the beach and you've noticed that foam along the waves and along the sand, you know what that is now. You get it. So if you didn't know, now you know. All right, so this is a good thing to definitely have in an octopus exhibit because octopuses are very good eaters. That also means they go to the bathroom quite a lot. So we definitely need to be able to get that waste out of the water. Too much waste in the water is toxic. Now, that also means that it's not just waste that is proteins. There's also other kinds of waste too. And it's kind of known as nitrates. And those can actually be very, very harmful to animals. So what is used to get rid of those nitrates are these little things called bioballs. It's basically a little plastic ball with tons of pegs on it to have a lot of surface area for bacteria to grow. A lot of people think of bacteria as being bad, right? That's why we have antibacterial this, antibacterial that. Bacteria can give you an infection. Well, there's also good bacteria. You may not know this, but we actually have a lot of bacteria in us that we need. It's part of our digestion. It helps us to break down some of the foods that we eat. Well, bacteria is also potentially good for water. So you can see right in here, this is actually a giant tower. All the little blue things that you see in there, those are the little balls that have all the pegs on them. So bacteria can grow on them. And the water goes through it. The bacteria can process the nitrates into something a little less harmful called nitrites. And some other bacteria in there can actually process the nitrites to make them way less harmful. Okay, but we also do water changes. So there could be a point in which our bacteria doesn't quite do all of the work. The ocean has a whole system that can do the whole work. It can completely process everything where live algae and photosynthetic things like plankton, there's some tiny plankton, can use up all the nutrients that are created by animal waste. But we don't have them in a lot of our exhibits here. So that's one of the reasons why we do actually have to change out some of the water. We drain some and then we put some back. All right, some fresher stuff back in. So this is one of the ways that we can do that. So our biological filtration. And of course, our giant Pacific octopus lives in cold, cold water. So that means we need to be able to chill this water down. Some people don't know this. Actually, I just learned this. Our giant Pacific octopus lives in the coldest exhibit in our whole aquarium. So we need to be able to make sure it's nice and cold. So just like you can use an air conditioner to make the air in your house or in a building cold, we actually have things there. There's a couple of different things. One is called a heat exchanger and the other is called a chiller. And it actually cools the water down for our octopus and for our other animals that we have here. And all of these things, how cold the water is or warm, so the temperature of the water, the flow that our exhibits have, all of this is actually monitored. We have it hooked up to a monitor system that we have a whole department here called life support, and they can monitor what all the exhibits look like. So they actually have the system hooked up in a way that if something is out of range, it sends an alarm. And then we know we have to go and take care of this exhibit. So right here, GPM means gallons per minute, 71.5 gallons per minute going through the filtration. That's really fast. And then we have this right here, 47.9 degrees Fahrenheit. That's chilly. So if you're out there right now and you're feeling a little warm, just imagine what it would be like to stick your hand in this octopus exhibit. Nice and cool. So we know a little bit about filtration here. We've talked a little bit about what they eat. One of the really important things for giant Pacific octopus is to keep its brain moving, to keep it occupied. This is what we call enrichment. Enrichment is giving them something that can get their brains moving. Now, it can be a whole bunch of different things, such as this. Do you see the octopus arm? I love it. Okay, so we can give them toys, and this octopus will get this toy and try to figure out what it is. Now, an octopus has all these suction cups that can help hold on to it. The suction cups also taste or sense the chemical signature of whatever they are touching. So this octopus is not just holding the Mr. Potato Head, but also tasting it too. Now, it does have a hollow inside, so you can even stick food in it, and the octopus has to figure out how to open it up to get food out of it. And that's really fun. We've also used things like puzzles. So there'll be a bunch of PVC or plastic tubing that you can stick food into. And the octopus has to reach its arm in there, maneuver around, find the food, and pull it out. Now, there's so many different things that we can do. Even just petting the octopus can help. Now, this is one of my favorite things. This is not a giant Pacific octopus. This is a little red octopus. But we gave it a box, and in that box is a shrimp. Now, this octopus has to figure out how to get the shrimp. And as you can see, it has definitely figured that out. And what's really cool about the whole thing is it now has a safe little place to eat its meal. So it's pretty funny. Some of the things that we can give our octopus buds here and what they do with it. One of my favorite things that our Octopus's aquarist told me about is that she gave him 8 different types, or tried to give him 8 different types of food, one for each arm. Now just imagine trying to taste 8 different things at one time and figure out what's going on. Now, he didn't actually want all 8. I think it got to be a little too much. So after a while, he's like, I don't want that, and stopped grabbing them from her. But even that is enrichment. Even moving their furniture around, the rocks and everything around, that's enrichment too. All of these things are what our octopus needs to thrive. And this is what our staff does every single day. They are incredible at taking care of their animals, and they really care about them. So they learn about them, they observe them, and they work really hard to make sure that our animals have the best care they possibly can. All right, everybody. Well, I'm sorry I ran over time there, but it is time for us to wrap up. So thank you so much for joining us to learn a little bit about our octopus exhibit and our octopus itself. We have one more class coming up today, so if you are interested, please feel free to join us. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye.